So if you're a Digimon fan and you've ever looked at the Digimon TCG and felt like it was really overwhelming and thought, it's a little bit too difficult for me to get into, maybe you're not sure what decks are good, maybe you're not sure what fits your style, or maybe you just want to practice. We're going to discuss 5 resources today that I believe are super necessary for both learning and becoming better at the game. So if you're a new player, or you're only just finding out about the game now, I'm Dane, and I yap about good decks, bad decks, everything in between. I've commentated for events, and I'll be commentating more soon. And I make skits about the TCG. So subscribe if any of that interests you. I'm trying to hit 1,000 in 2025. Let's get into the video. So super often in the comments, I get a lot of questions asking about like what programs I use, what deck lists I'm taking from, or for example, like where they're coming from. And I think it's really important to know this as a newer player because it's kind of hard to find these things on your own. But like once you start getting into locals and whatnot, you'll find that a lot of people will tell you these sort of things. But I feel like, taking that first step into, going to your first locals is a difficult one in and of itself. So having the resources ahead of time will make it monumentally easier for you, hopefully. All the links to these websites and such will be down in the description below for your ease of accessibility, as well as links to all my other socials. So first off, DigiDev is a website that's dedicated to being able to access and make your own decks online. It's really good for tournaments. Almost every tournament scene that I've ever been to uses it, and it's fantastic for just putting a deck together online before you actually sleeve it up. Make sure that it functions. Let's talk about how you can go about building your own deck online and look at the breadth of cards that are available to you. You're going to go up here to Deck Builder, and you're going to be able to chuck a bunch of cards in here. As you can see, you're only allowed 50 cards in a deck, and 5 eggs, which is, 4 of the same card, 1 of a different one, is usually the standard. A really quick aside here, if you're completely new to the game, the most standard ratios for a 50 card deck is 12 rookies, 10 level 4s, or champions, 8 level 5s or ultimates, and 6 level 6s or megas. That does not include most of like options and tamers and whatnot, but that is a golden standard version of, like a kind of a stack deck. Now the TCG has come a long way from those ratios as a standard, but if you're new to the game, I would suggest sticking to those numbers. We can change it up later when we understand the game better. So how do we access the encyclopedia? Well, an easy way to both keep up with what set we're on and also access some cards to start with is these packs along the top. When you click on them, you're going to be able to see every single card from a specific set. Great, we get to see all of the rookies, we get to see all of the level 4s, level 7s, and it's kind of color divided, archetype-ish divided. Regular cards plus their alt arts, parallel arts, whatever you want to call it. If you go up here, you're going to see a wrench, and that icon is going to take you to the filter system. This is really going to help you define what cards you might need in a deck. For example, maybe I just need a blue level 4 to round out my deck. We hit blue and level 4, we save. It's going to show us all the blue level 4s. Now, because we're in the set specifically, it was only showing us the version 2.0 blue level 4s. But if you take away that set, it'll show you every single level 4 in the game currently that is blue. And of course, the cool thing about this is that you can click on these cards and that will add them to your deck builder. So now we have 1, now we have 2 Calamarimon, we're going to add a Lanamon, a Shellmon maybe even. And what you can do is click full cards over here, and that'll show you, the full arts of the cards so that you actually have a bit more of a gauge of what these are. And just as importantly, that I use super often is if you were to take away your level 4 selection, for example, and then maybe you added, like a level 6 or a level 5, and then you added a tamer and a egg. You'll find that these are really out of order, and that can kind of muck you up. We can hit level sort up the top here, and that'll just sort everything together into, orders from level 2 all the way through to level 6, and then your options and tamers. And I just think that's neat. If you need to save your deck, you're going to go, I'm playing Goldramon Turbo, and then you're going to click save over here, and you're just going to add it to one of these. That is the absolute bare bones of what you need to know about DigiDev. There's a lot more to this system that I could explain to you, but I think that, learning it as you go is super important as well. So now you have a way to chuck cards together, but maybe you've overvalued your blue Goldramon's strength as a card. Just a tiny bit. I didn't even know this card existed until this moment, if I'm being honest. How do we find out what cards are good currently? And what decks overall are proving themselves to be formidable? Digimon Meta is another insane website. It allows you to see the stored information of tournament winning decks, makes it super easy for you to go in, have a look at generally what's winning, that is past and present, see the best, most competitive versions of any deck you want to play and if they've had results, and easily export them into outside programs that use deck lists. The only thing I'm curious to see in the future soon is whether they'll keep like a separate Japanese and English like set of tournament results, considering with the unification we'll be lined up for Japanese release dates, hopefully. So when we want to look at really competitive decks, you can choose from the Japanese or the English format. Let's say we go to the BT18 and BT19 format, for example. This is the current format. You have all of these different decks that are winning. You can see that these are, for example, first place along here, second place. You can see which tournament I played at. Can't say I ever understood what TB was, but somebody can tell me that in the comments. You can see whereabouts from which country they were able to, take this first place, for example. And then you can see what deck they're on. If you ever want to look at specifically a deck that you like, maybe we want to see a Greymon deck. Don't know why it's giving me Magna X when I look up Greymon, but we can have a gander and see why. So by clicking on the image, it'll take you to the deck list itself. You'll be able to see, again, the author, the host, yada yada, and then you'll see, 4 of the Vmon, 1 of this one, all these. I'm not seeing a Greymon except for specifically the Blitz Omnimon, which is funny.
They digivolve together to become
Greymon.
But it'll show us all the cards that this player used in their list to come first, and then down the bottom you're able to highlight this, copy it, and then you can plug it into pretty much any simulator that you want to. Aside from the tournament decks, there is the player guide section, which serves as like articles and guides for newer players. It's a great news resource. It's pretty useful for being able to find out, for example, what you're going to get as promo cards when they're revealed, and an explanation of each of the individual cards. And the only other thing I want to mention that I think would be sick for newer players is the promo card information section. If you're ever unsure whether or not your card is a promo or that you need a promo card, down the bottom right here, they will, where their card numbers usually are, it'll have P- before any other number in the set. This is really important because there are some decks that heavily rely on promo cards, which is, to be honest, a little bit of a problem for Bandai, but it's a great way to identify them. And if you ever need an entire encyclopedia of promo cards, I think that this is a great way to have a look and realize whether or not you're missing a card or there is a card that you could, get in the future that is a promo card. My only issue with this on Digimon Meta is that on the front page it does say how to get and more. Unfortunately, it kind of feels like when I'm looking at these, even if I were to click on them, for example, it doesn't actually give me a way to figure out how to get them. So if you're ever having a hard time finding out how to get a promo card, I would just Google the card itself. For example, Pulsemon TCG. Usually it's easier if you were to Google, Pulsemon P0 yada yada, and then you can just go to the Digimon card game wiki here. This is a card that I was looking for example, maybe, and then down the bottom here it's going to say English sets for if you're playing from the West, and this will just give you exactly which set it actually comes in. For example, it came in the Great Legend pre-release promotion pack, so this is what the pack looks like. These are some of the cards you could have gotten in the pack down here. And then you can see that it's been reprinted a couple of times in, for example, RBO1 Resurgence Booster, which is just an entire set dedicated to reprinting cards. Which I will always say about the Digimon TCG, when they decide to reprint cards, they do a fantastic job of it for the most part. Sometimes it takes a long time for us to get cards that we absolutely need, but when we get them really early on, man, is it great. Next up, we'll talk about simulators, or sims for short. Now, DCGO is kind of my personal main simulator to use, so we'll start with that. It's a fan-made project by a YouTuber named Huang0, and honestly, it's pretty fantastic for learning the game. You're able to build and save decks like DigiDev, match against random opponents, and because it's automated, a lot of the time you don't have to worry about misreading your cards. A lot of the time. DCGO has a bit of a problem with bugs, and don't get me wrong, I totally understand that this is a fan-made project. So we give it a lot of credit for that. But sometimes these bugs can be insane. We had Virus Imperial able to do all of its infects in your opponent's turn at one point, which if you're a new player, that doesn't mean anything to you. Sometimes your effects just don't trigger at all, etc. Now, I will say that the team has done a fantastic job of fixing as many of these bugs as they possibly can. In the long run, the game is much more stable, but I have a couple of mates who were left with a pretty sour taste afterwards, and sometimes the odd bug gets to you when it works horrifically against you. DCGO stays pretty up to date with current set, usually giving about 2 weeks roughly, give or take, when a new set drops, because they don't want to step on Bandai's toes and therefore have the game taken down. And secondly, it takes a long time to code something like this. So You got to give it time, especially when we're dealing with bug fixes. But yeah, I think that DCGO is a fantastic sim. I've always absolutely loved this since its day one. And again, it is in such a fantastic spot now. So if you had any problems with it to begin with, I really recommend giving it another shot now. It is like well back together, a lot more useful. You can go battle, you can lock in a bot match if you're a little bit wary of playing against real players immediately as a newer player. You can play room matches against your friends if you want to, or you can just go random match and pick a deck and just go hell for leather on the ladder. Unfortunately, there isn't quite yet a rank system, which is something that I would absolutely be excited for, hopefully in the future. Well, we know it's in the future. So one of the last ones I want to talk about here is Project Drasil. Project Drasil is another fan-made online simulator that you'll have to know how to use the cards already. It allows you to build and save decks like how DigiDev does, but the difference here compared to DCGO is, again, twofold. One, you'll have to match specifically with people. You know, you'll go like looking for game in this main chat, or just start inviting randos if you're having no luck. There was a set of bot players on the server, but it doesn't look like I can, you know, seem to find those now. But when those bot players are up and about, I don't really know if they're any good. Secondly, you'll be able to play with cards that aren't just from the current set, but also ones that are revealed and have had a chance to, you know, be imported into the game as well. So you might be versing cards you've never seen before, even after taking the time to learn a lot of them. For example, we have the EX8 cards, which are released in Japan, but they aren't released in the West at the moment. Other than all of that, I think Drasil has always been a pretty good resource when we're trying to learn new decks that haven't been released yet before big tournaments, and it has a lot of quality of life in the UI that once you delve into it, it really starts to shine. The last resource we'll talk about too here is the Bandai TCG Plus app itself. So this is for really newer players. If you have literally never gone to a locals, you won't have any clue what this is. You'll get there, they'll tell you to download this on your phone, and you'll just be like, oh, what are you talking about? Now, I didn't know this had a website for the most part until just now, so bear with me, but they've done a good job of improving the app over time. You know, initially on release, this was a poo-poo dog water dog shit app, but now it is actually really good for, you know, finding events if you want to. I have to log in with my Bandai Namco ID. I won't go to my events because it wants me to log in, but basically you can use the my events part of the app to actually find events. You can use it to find out when you're going to have holiday events, for example. You can find out where your store tournament prizing is going to be. Importantly as well, which I think is really cool, of course I have to log in for this as well. You're actually able to make decks in the same way that you can, you know, build on DigiDev or on any of the Sims. It's just kind of cool to have that on an app so that you don't have to just be beholden to your computer at all times. You can start building decks on the app, which I think is pretty cool. Again, it's fantastic for like being able to find different events, you know, see some news about the Digimon card game. You're gonna need it anyway to actually play at a locals, so might as well get it now. So I hope that helps. If you're a newer player, I know that it can be very tough to get into the game, and if you're somebody who's been playing for a long time and you wanted to put out there a resource that you think would really help out newer players, definitely put it down in the comments below, because you know, I've racked my brain about, you know, what I can do to actually help newer players to enter the game, because for me, when I first started playing, man, it just felt like a nightmare trying to understand what was going on. And it didn't help that I was coupled with the fact that I had no idea how TCGs worked whatsoever. Whereas now that I like actually understand how the game works, I just think these are really good resources if you want to actually start playing the card game. But yeah, if you're a newer player and you had no idea about something that I was talking about, please don't hesitate to put that in the comments. All I'm trying to do is help out people as much as I can. I know that it can be a little bit daunting to actually jump into a TCG because it is, yeah, it's a lot to actually, you know, get together cards. It's easier to play than Warhammer. You ain't got to paint minis. You just buy the cards, and then they arrive at your door, and you get to play the game. And it's just awesome. I'm Dane. I've been playing this game for way too long. I genuinely adore it. The game itself is so much fun. It's getting to a point where it's very complex, but also very simple at its core. The memory system is fantastic too. Like, it's just awesome playing it. And there is a breadth of decks that are available to you. The meta is currently extremely diverse. There has never been a better time to join and play the game than right now, as we come up to unification with Japan. So again, thank you so much for watching. If I missed out on anything, again, please, for the love of God, put it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe. I'll be coming out with some more newbie-friendly stuff hopefully soon, because I think it's really cool to think about how to get into the game as a newbie. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!